Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Stacy Altori with ProMed Billing Solutions. I'm the owner operator, and I also have Jeff Paperzicki, also known as Jeff P, who is my VP of Sales and Billing for ProMed. And today we're going to talk about converting chiropractic to multiple disciplinary. We're going to go over some steps that you need to do when converting from chiro to multiple disciplinary practice. And then also, we're going to go over some differences with insurances and some questions that a lot of people have when converting from chiropractic to multiple disciplinary. And what is your best route when going into multiple disciplinary? Because there's so many different routes that you can take going and converting to multiple disciplinary. So, Jeff, you want to start us off and go over some things and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. As Stacy said, I am known as Jeff P. Jeff Paperzicki, Vice President of ProMed Billing Solutions. The first thing that you have to do, you have to figure out the fork in the road that you want to take. Like Stacy said, there are so many different paths that you can take as a chiropractor to become multidisciplinary. You just have to decide which path that you want to take or a combination of paths, which we can help you out with. And the second thing that you got to do once you decide that path is making sure that you change your taxonomy for your group NPI. So
That's the
right now
first thing
you're
that you
probably
do.
listed as a single specialty type of provider. You have to make yourself a multi-specialty provider depending and then you select the taxonomy depending on the types of providers that you're going to hire within your practice. Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, what if they wanted to do, let's just say, multiple, going to a multiple disciplinary and they wanted to add in wound care to their specialty? What is the difference of doing like adding, and if there is, adding wound care versus adding a physical therapist or a nurse practitioner for knee injections or an MD or whatnot? Is there a difference when doing that as far as taxonomy, credentialing, setting up, etc.?
There's slight differences where like say if you're hiring a physical therapist, say you just hire a physical therapist, you have to change your taxonomy to uh to reflect a physical therapist being in the office, still multidisciplinary. You have to link them to your group through the applicable insurances so they can bill. It's going to be the same process if you hire a practitioner, if you hire an MD, a DO. It doesn't matter who or what path you take, you still have to change your taxonomy and link them to your insurance enrollments. Okay, from there, that's where the changes happen. The differences happen,
Okay.
right? Because it's going to be on the type of practice that you decide. So if you decide physical therapy, a physical therapist is going to get paid for therapies under Medicare that a chiropractor would not. So that'd be pretty beneficial for your practice, right? So you got to look at the pros and cons of the route that you're going to take. Now let's take the wound care as a different example. You're going to have to hire an MD as a supervising provider, either an MD to do the treatments or a supervising provider and hire practitioners under your group, which again, you still have to change your taxonomies, put them on your enrollments, and then off you go. Now, depending on the route that you take, all of them are more lucrative than the chiropractic space because, as we all know, the insurances are beating up chiropractors across the country. So everybody's looking for a way that their practice can
Subsidize.
survive and thrive,
Right. Survive
right?
and
You
thrive.
want to be
Right.
able to survive and thrive. And I can give you the ProMed, we can give you different avenues to take, and every one of those avenues are going to make the practice more money. So the goal is to survive and thrive. So you got to figure what is it that you want to do? How do you want to treat your patients? What kind of spaces do you want to get in? And how much money do you want, to make for the group? Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, so when converting, what would be the timeline and the process of converting. So they have a chiropractic office. So does that chiropractic office get shut down in converting to multiple disciplinary? Can they use the same tax ID? Does that have to change?
Great question, Stacy. They do not. Nothing changes. You can keep your same tax ID. You just have to check with your healthcare attorney to make sure you're structured correctly in the state that you're in.
Mm. So
Because in
it's state specific then.
yes, I'm going to give you an example. In the state of North Carolina, a chiropractor cannot own a multidisciplinary clinic, right?
Mm.
This is where the attorneys come in and help you structure. You would essentially become a management company that would control your group under an MD that would own the practice. In other states, like such as Florida, you do not have to do that. But you do, if you're a non-provider, you'd have to get an ACA license. But if you're a chiropractor, you can just convert to a multidisciplinary clinic, right?
So
So
in like
everything's
a
going to be
state like
state
the
specific.
what did you say? I'm sorry, North Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina is an example of one where a chiropractor cannot own a multidisciplinary clinic.
So they can't own it at all.
That's correct.
So the MD that they hire or the management company would have to own that entirety.
So yeah, well, the MD would own the practice, right? So you collaborate with an MD that you pay him a stipend, basically, and then you would create a management company to own, basically control that group. Okay,
Gotcha.
so
So that's how they
you
do
can
it.
have it separate. So what they do is they keep their chiropractic tax ID separate.
Mm-hmm.
Then they create a new tax ID, say the MD owns it, and then that management company that you create would own that. And this is
Gotcha.
where your healthcare attorney will come in and help you structure it legally in your state,
Okay. So
right?
they need to find out their state specifics in when converting.
That's
That's
correct.
number
And
one.
once you have it structured correctly, the next step where ProMed can help you in every way right after that step, from credentialing to billing to verification of benefits, we come in, we take that structure, we credential it properly by changing your tax IDs, getting an extra MPI number if needed, making sure all the providers that you're going to hire are under that group, the group is enrolled, all of that good stuff. Once that is done, you're now kind of ready to bill.
And what's the timeline on credentialing, Jeff? As far as like Medicare and panels, are most of them closed? Are most of them open? And how does that work with in and out of network when being multiple disciplinary?
Well, another great question, Stacy. Well, the first step that you do is you're going to change your taxonomy. That could be done in a day, right?
Okay.
The second step is you work on your Medicare enrollment, and Medicare typically takes 30 to 45 days, depending on what needs to be done. And a lot of times it's less time than that. They are definitely going to be your quickest processor for enrollments versus Medicaid and commercial insurances.
Okay.
Now, Medicaid, won't credential you until you have a Medicare number, so you have to do that first.
Okay.
So then once you get to the Medicaid space, you're looking at an average of 90 to 120 business days,
Okay.
right, to get enrolled into the Medicaid program. Now you got commercial payers such as Blue Cross, United Healthcare. All of them are going to vary between 90 and 120 business days.
And that's depending on state specific and if they even have panels open, right?
Right. So
Okay.
that's where the tricks come in. So if any provider is not credentialed with an insurance company such as Aetna or United Healthcare, right now, most of the panels for most types of providers across the country are closed, right?
So what
So
would happen then at that point? They would just apply for out of network
that's
coverage.
correct. Yeah, you would basically, most of the time you submit a W-9 with your first claim form, and then your out of network benefits kick in. Okay, so
Okay.
then you got to make sure you do benefit checks properly on patients, but we'll talk about that in a second. So for the credentialing part, with your commercials, if their panels are closed, so what you would want to try to find a provider that's already in those networks, if possible. If so, then the timeline decreases and it allows your group to put somebody into the network, possibly as long as the group can be put into the network if it's required. Some require it, some do not, right? So it's a tricky process that ProMed can absolutely help you with getting into the networks and linking providers. So you hire a provider that's already in the network, all you have to do is link them. And that process is about 30 to 60 days at the most.
Okay. Okay. So now how does that work as far as Medicare replacement plans with credentialing? Or does
It's
that?
going to be the kind of the same issue that we talked about, because Medicare is definitely going to enroll you. But then the problem becomes, the Medicare Advantages if they have openings as well.
Okay,
So
so say they have a replacement plan and that replacement plan they're out of network with, but they're in network with Medicare. How does that work for the provider?
if they're out of network with that Medicaid replacement plan, it basically it's the same thing as being out of network with a commercial plan.
Okay.
You're going to get a W-9 on file. You're going to submit your claims, and they're going to process out of network, right? But sometimes you get a choice. Say for United Healthcare, under them you can opt in or out to their commercial plans, their Medicare plans, and VA. Well, VA on the East Coast. VA community care, it's just an example. Like you can opt into which ones that you choose. So if you just want to be in Medicare Advantage, a lot of times typically you can just specifically select those plans. But again, you got to make sure they have openings. And that's the trick. And sometimes if they don't have an opening, there are types of backdoors and exceptions that you can do. I mean, of course, it's not guaranteed by anybody, but you can try to submit an exception letter with recommendations for patients.
Okay. So now how does it work if a chiropractor is in the ASH network, but they're multiple disciplinary?
Well,
So
that's
does ASH still apply for a chiropractor then?
ASH would apply to the particular types of providers.
So it
For
doesn't go by the
example,
group, it goes by the chiropractor or by the doctor.
it goes by the provider's type specialty. So
Okay.
for example, if you're a chiropractor and you decide to go to PT route in Florida, they're going to be put into ASH networks as well.
Okay.
In other states, that may not happen. So you might not have ASH networks in that particular state, such as North Carolina. And that PT wouldn't have to. They would go under normal Blue Cross or Cigna or
So
what
how would
have
that work with HNS then in the Carolinas? Is that the same situation?
well, yeah,
HNS
well, it's for
receives?
chiropractors. HNS is for chiropractors, and they
Okay.
are a much better
Even if they're in a
company.
multi-specialty group.
No, yeah, the HNS, you can have a multi-specialty group, but that's specific chiropractors.
Okay.
So all of your chiropractic claims would specifically go to HNS, right? And under Blue Cross, MedCost, Cigna, anybody in North Carolina will know. But all your other specialties will go straight to home plan of Blue Cross, not HNS, Cigna, and MedCost,
Okay.
right? So it's a lot of state specific stuff, because Ash Networks is not in every state, HNS is not in every state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some like regions of Blue Cross in the northwest, it's Blue Cross. You got Empire Blue Cross in the northeast. So it depends on the state that you're in, and the type of provider. But a lot of these plans that have daily limits and whatnot won't apply to your practitioners and MDs, but they may very well apply to your PTs and chiropractors.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's jump over to benefits, which is my big thing with offices. A lot of times when we have new clients come on, they just don't verify benefits. They just, and I'm going to use Medicare as an example. They're just like, It's 80/20. The patient said they met their deductible. We're going to go ahead and submit the claim. And then we get all these claims back. And guess what? They all have replacement plans. They never got benefits. And now all these claims are denying because they're out of network or they're not in network with, these plans, and there's no benefits or just didn't pay what they thought. So I just would like to review how important it is to get benefits for every patient, no matter what. It's so,
Exactly.
so important.
To
Maybe
me,
you could go
that's
through some scenarios that you've seen in the
well, that's
past.
the quickest way to lose money, and a
Good
lot of
point.
it. Because if you go multidisciplinary and you don't verify those benefits, it's the quickest way to put your practice out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, flat out. Under chiropractic, you could lose a little bit of money. But if you're multidisciplinary dealing with large injections or wound care, or, a claim that's a
Physical
$30,000
therapy.
claim
Those are
and
big
it
claims.
doesn't get
Yeah,
paid, yeah, it could put
yeah.
you out of business quite rapidly, right? So, and Medicare is actually a prime example of that. So when the patients come in, you got to treat every patient like they don't know what they're doing, because they don't know what they're doing or talking
Yeah,
about.
that's not their specialty, it's benefit.
No, it's not their
Yeah,
specialty. I think back into, the days before I was a medical biller, when I had an insurance card. All I knew what my deductible and copay was. I had no idea about anything else. So whatever they told me, I took it as gold, right?
mhm.
So Medicare being that example, if a patient comes in, they're going to give you every card in their wallet. They say, here,
Yep.
here, take this, take that, take. They're going to give you their
Or just
Medicare
give you
card.
one, the Medicare card. They're
Yeah,
missing the other
and they're missing
card.
the replacement plan, right?
Yeah,
So what happens is, and we come across quite a few chiropractic practices that do this. They don't check the benefits. They assume they're Medicare, right? Then when the claim is submitted, you get a denial back. The patient has a capitation plan. Now, if you're going multidisciplinary, they're under chiropractic, you could typically just rebill it to that multidisciplinary plan, or not the replacement plan, if you're in that network, right? But if you're multidisciplinary and you have, I'll use wound care as an example. Medicare covers most, skin substitutes, and those can be very high dollar. Claims can get over $100,000 easily. Now, if you just assume that patient was Medicare and you submitted it, it comes back, the patient has a capitation plan. That's what they'll say, right? Then you try to submit it to that capitation plan, they're not going to cover it. You
yeah.
just lost $100,000, right? Because you simply
And
didn't
that's just an example.
yeah, right. It's just a
Right.
big example, extreme example of what could happen. But it's because you just simply didn't verify the benefits. So what happens is they'll say, the excuses are, and I have to say them, I don't want to pay $20 for a verification. I'm too cheap. I don't want my staff doing it, or whatever. It's costing me money. That's what happens. My staff doesn't have time. You get all of those excuses, but at the end of the day, even for a chiropractic patient, their treatment plan could be worth a few $1,000s. What is $20 for getting a verification, or $25 for getting a
You know
verification,
exactly what's going
right?
on.
So you don't lose that money. So if you don't do them, I guarantee you're losing money. Yeah, I
How many
guarantee it.
times have we seen that the plans termed for non-payment? That's another thing,
Yeah,
and
they'll term, they switch
sometimes you don't get
jobs.
these claims back for what, Jeff, 4 or 5 weeks by the time they process them and you get the EOBs, if they're coming mail or whatnot. And by the time you see it, you're a couple weeks in the treatment and they
Yep.
don't have insurance.
Right. And then the patient may present you with a card where you're not in network with, and they don't have out of network benefits. So now you're going to be stuck with trying to collect from the patient.
Right.
And you don't want to be in that position, because when you do that, remember, the patient doesn't know what they're doing. Right.
Right.
And you send them a post hoc bill down the line because we didn't verify your benefits. What are the consequences to that?
Right.
Well, one, it's a compliance issue internally. So that's a whole nother subject, OIG
For
compliance,
another day. Right.
right? Yeah, that's another whole issue. Then the patient could give you a bad Google review. in this
all of a
day and
sudden
age,
you're
let's
gonna
be
verify
honest,
a benefit,
everybody looks at reviews. It's the first thing
right?
they go look at. So for I do the same thing. I can't help it. You want to see
Right,
what other people are saying. And you don't want multiple reviews saying that, oh, they billed me, $5,000 3 months later because they didn't verify or do their job. They'll say you just didn't do your job with the insurance because
right,
remember, they don't know,
right.
right? And what they don't know is what they don't know. So you have to fill in that gap. And that's why insurance verifications are critical. So spending that 20 or $25 or having your staff do that, versus sending a bill down the line, it's actually saving you money. Because
Right,
if you're not doing that, like I said, I guarantee you're losing money, especially if you don't have your eyes on it. You don't have
right,
your eyes on it, those EOBs are coming back, whatever.
right.
They could come back and process nothing, something, everything. You just don't know. And a lot, we find a lot of clients that come on board, they're flying at the seat of their pants. So to back it up,
And that's
back to
because they're not
multidisciplinary,
taking the first step in verifying the benefits before they take.
exactly. And you can't survive if you want to go multidisciplinary. You cannot survive without doing benefit checks.
Right.
Because the payments are much larger. You're putting out more for those businesses so you can take in more money, do it the right way. Benefit checks are a priority, period.
So now here's another question I have. So you have a patient and you have a physical therapist and then yourself, a chiropractor. So this patient is going to see the chiropractor for an adjustment and then going to see the physical therapist for their therapy. How does this work as far as benefits? Do they have one copay, two copays? Does it go by tax ID? Does it go by provider? How does that work? And again, I want to invert back to how
Yeah.
important it is to be getting these benefits.
Well, first it's going to go under your tax ID. Because if you see provider A in one spot and then you go down the street and see provider B with another tax ID, you're probably going to get two separate copays.
Hmm.
Co-insurance is another thing. Co-insurances are set, like
Right, right,
Medicare 80/20, it's set. But when you have a flat copay such as $25, then you got to look at the type of provider that you have in your office. And then it goes by the benefit checks. So this is another reason why you got to do the benefit checks, because you might find that chiropractor has an additional copay versus the PT, or the PT or what other provider might have that flat copay, but chiropractic copays are waived.
hmm,
You find that a lot, deductibles included. So
right.
sometimes it's waived. You might, if you're one of the ones that aren't doing the benefit checks, you think, oh, the patient said it has a $5,000 deductible, but yet they're paying me. I wonder why. Well, your chiropractic deductible could be waived, and that happens in many states. So,
Right.
and there's another reason why you have to do the benefit checks.
So when they're getting benefit checks and they have a multiple disciplinary practice, they need to be getting chiropractic benefits. They need to be getting, if they have a physical therapy, and they need to be asking if there's a copay for each. And then they need to check MD or whatever their plan is going to be. They need to check benefits for
Yep.
each provider, correct?
Types of services, yes. And if you have high dollar codes that are worth thousands and tens of thousands of dollars,
You definitely want
you
to check
should
it.
be able to check that specific code with the insurance company.
So now, how do you feel about online benefits? Because I know I am not a fan of them at all, because if we need to
They're
appeal,
not accurate.
you can't use those. You got to use
It
actual reference.
you can, because we understand that offices may be pressed for time, but this is where another example where ProMed can come in and help you with benefit checks to make sure they're being done right. But if they're not being checked, it's just a death knell for the practice. If you're
We see it all the
especially if
time.
you're
Yep.
multidisciplinary, because you have to check on every single thing. Then you've got to make sure authorizations aren't needed for commercial plans.
Hmm.
Because so everything is based off of the specific
Right. I forgot
patient's
about authorizations.
benefit plan,
Right.
right? Because a lot of medical services do need prior auths or pre-certifications at some point.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So let's touch base real quick. We're running out of time. But I wanted to just touch base on insurances going, when you're billing chiropractic versus physical therapy versus, let's just say, wound care, knee injections, um, it, they should really check their fee schedules for their state and see what benefits them the most for what their budget is, as far as what provider to bring in and which route they want to do. Is that
Of
what
course.
you would
Oh yeah. I
advise?
mean, anything that's a supply type, whether it's an injection or a DME or whatever it is, the first thing you have to look at is what is your cost?
Mm-hmm.
What is your cost for that injection? What are you going to make after that cost versus your fee schedule? And then how much does it cost you to have that provider treat the patient? I mean, you could really get down into very detailed analytics and formularies for this, which is what you absolutely should do if you're going to go multidisciplinary. Because if you
Right.
do it, the complication level does increase, but the monetary level also increases if you do it the right way.
Perfect. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time. So if you'd like more help or more, if you have questions or anything that we can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Our email is info@promed, PROMED, claims, CLAIMS.com. Again, that's info@promedclaims.com. And our phone number is 866-977-6633. And we're always here. So you can call us, text us. We'll be more than happy to help you out with any questions that you have. That's what we're here for. Jeff, did you want to add anything?
No, you said it just perfectly at the end there. If
Thank
you
you.
need help, give us a call. We are experts at converting into multidisciplinary credentialing, verifications, and billing.
So give us a call or shoot us an email. We'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Take care.